Introducing AirMeet, an all-in-one virtual and hybrid events platform designed for high engagement with an attendee-first approach. Now double your leads and revenue by customizing your event with interactive features, branding, analytics, and audience insights, while enjoying up to 98% attendee retention.
Thanks for tuning in to the Customer Success Festival. We really hope you're enjoying the event so far. We've got some incredible sessions lined up for you guys, so don't miss out. Also, if you're looking to connect with our speakers and other attendees, head on over to our Slack channel to continue the discussion. Now sit back and get ready for the next session.
Hi, I'm Celia Gouvet, and I'm excited to be with you here at the Customer Success Festival. I'm really excited to talk today more about tiering your customers to create customer and team wins. These are topics that I'm so passionate about, and making sure that we not only drive the best customer experience, we also engage, motivate, and retain our teams. A little bit more about me. I'm currently the VP of Customer Success at Whisk. Whisk is helping to create a space for life at work. We're focused on connection and belonging. If you were to think of my LinkedIn profile now, you would see that I've been at Whisk for about a year, building and leading the customer success team. And prior to that, I was at companies like Glint, the employee engagement company, which was acquired by LinkedIn, SuccessFactors, acquired by SAP, and I've spent most of my career in customer success, building and leading teams and functions. But what you wouldn't see is more about me as a person. Who am I beyond my customer success passions? I am a mom of 2 toddler girls. They keep me very busy. I love traveling, the ocean, my Peloton, and I love life efficiency hacks and any targeted ads that help me buy things to help with that passion. You can see here a picture of Greece, an example of one of my travels that I love. If this is something you'd love to learn more about with your team and connect more on a human basis beyond the job title, feel free to check out Whisk for free. I have a link in the corner, whisk.com. We recently launched the ability to try us out just amongst your team or throughout your organization so you can get to know each other better. Let's dive right into the presentation. So getting started, I like to level set on what does tiering mean? How do you tier? Why is it important? So at its core, tiering your customers is when you're identifying different segments of customers based on a specific criteria. We'll go through some examples later of what the segmentation criteria can be. It's typically something that defines the customer. So it could be their spend, it could be their industry, the type of product they're looking for or using, etc. And we'll talk more. What you'd look at then is, what is the outcome you want to provide for each tier of customer? What does that customer want and need? And then what would make them most successful? This may be different. And that's where you start to get into different segments, want, need, or we want or need them to have different things to make them the most successful. Next, I like to think you're starting to move into action of tiering. What I like to do next is create a customer journey. Often when people hear of a customer journey, they may think of sitting in a room for days or weeks and whiteboarding, coming out with a very large plan, which is an excellent exercise, highly recommend. For the sake of getting started, I actually think of a very simple, high-level customer journey. It outlines the key touch points you want to deliver for each customer segment. This could be things like an onboarding meeting, an adoption call, a business review. What are those key touch points? And based off of those touch points, what is the delivery method of them? I'll give you an example. For a customer, if you're tiering based on spend, a lower spend customer, the customer onboarding may be an email. Whereas maybe your highest spend customer, you're having an in-person or a live Zoom meeting where you're walking through specific implementation steps. So the same touch point on the journey can be delivered in several different ways that are still about the customer's outcome and looking for what they want and need to make them most successful. Next, I like to say to start small. This is both in Segmentation, don't do several different layers at once. Start with 1 or 2 at most. Look at the touch points. Again, don't get every single possible email or call or interaction, but what are the big touch points? What drive the most success? And down to the delivery methods. Is it an email that's automatically sent from some type of a platform? Is it an email that someone is manually sending? Is it a call? Is it a Zoom? Is it moving to a self-serve guide to be able to completely do this on their own? Look at the high-level methods. Finally, always make sure you're prioritizing the customer experience and optimizing for your team's success. If you're creating wins for both the customer and your team, I feel like then you're on the right track. Let's look further. What I like to say is tiering customers, but make sure it's driven by what's best for the customer experience. You'll hear the term scale a lot. I absolutely love that term, or any others you may hear around it. But if it's not driven with the customer in mind, then it's really not scaling and it's really not driving the right customer experience. So make sure when you're segmenting, creating different tiers for your customers, you're always thinking of the customer. So let's dive into some examples. I mentioned a few earlier around segmentation. The 2 most commonly used ones in the SaaS business that I see are based on the annual contract value. So how much is a customer spending over a certain period of time? It could be typically over a year, but maybe it's a multi-year contract as well. And the second one, which is typically the next level people try to get to, is the formula of how much are they spending over their contract value over, let's say, a year for annual, and what is their future potential spend? This is typically a formula that comes from your system of records, such as CRM, Salesforce, whatever type of CRM you're using to track this data, that shows what's the contract value that the customer is currently spending, and what is their potential? So do they have potential to add, if you're by user, additional users or employees, additional products, additional services? So looking at a high level, what would those future potential be? Adding that together, and based off of that, coming up with a different tier of customer. There's several different ways to do this. There's no right and wrong way. Those are the most common and typically easiest I see. It doesn't eliminate many others. There's sometimes industry alignment, such as healthcare customers versus education, different segments of those customers that have a common industry in mind. It could be the type of person you're working with, whether you're working with the head of HR or the head of finance or the head of sales. They may have different outcomes, different touch points, delivery methods that best align to them. It may be the tenure of the customer. Have they been with you 1 year or 5 years? If you go back to what is the outcome we want to drive, what gives them the best experience, and how do we do that based on the touch points and the delivery method, that may vary depending on how long the customer's been with you. There's also areas such as the goal that they're looking for. There may be different ways to use the product, different use cases, or even different products. If you're a SaaS company or any type of company with multiple product offerings, that very well may be segmentation in a different tier in its own, and it may be combined with spend or other areas. So there's several ways to do this. There's more than this, I'm sure, listed. I'd love to hear if you have others, but make sure you start simple. You start small, and you start with something that can drive action. You don't want to segment just for the sake of it. You want to segment based off of the action that will define that segment and help them, again, be the most successful possible. So I've mentioned customers being the most successful possible. What I like to think of is the customer wins are at the center. When you think of their experience, everything revolves around it. So when you look at driving an action, if a customer really, really wants a call and only the call makes them the most successful, you wouldn't then determine that an email is the best method there, right? You would take that into account and think, what's the connection between what they want, how we can deliver it, and the best possible experience to make sure that they're happy, that they're enabled, and that they're using the platform. This doesn't mean the customer's always right. It doesn't mean we need to do exactly what they say. It doesn't mean we don't have boundaries and can't say no. It just means looking at the ideal experience that they want, that we want to provide, and finding the best way to do that. The next thing that means is, how do you scale efficiently? How do you get better profitability? So basically, if the customer's at the center and every customer wants a call every day, regardless of their spend, we know that doesn't scale. So what's the most efficient way? You may decide, let's look at the contents of what they want to talk about. Maybe they're sending several emails and they're sending them to a customer success manager. Is there a support team? Is there self-serve resources? Is there a help center? Is there other ways to offset the type of interaction they want that would in fact make it easier for them on their own time, allow them to be more successful, and you to have better scale and better profitability? So looking at it across the journey, those touch points, and finding what are the right areas that allow for everyone to win. It's also extremely important to measure success proactively, and of course, to monitor and iterate often. When I say measure proactively, what I mean is if you have a customer that's on an annual contract and you start changing the tier they're in, the type of touch points, maybe the type of person they're working with, the type of resources available, you don't want to do that and wait till the end of their contract to see if they're happy and if they're going to renew. So you don't only want to rely on renewals and revenue retention. You want to get ahead of that. So you want to look at measuring proactively. This could be anything such as surveys, whether they're net promoter scores, checking in from time to time. They may be manager reach outs, checking in, asking for feedback in conversations, CSAT surveys, getting regular on-demand feedback and making sure that they are happy, they are adopting, they are using your product. And so you're not waiting for the end of something to find out, oh, I actually am not happy with the tier of customer I'm in because I'm not happy with the deliverable that I'm getting. Another thing that's really important to note when we talk about customer wins at the center is you never want a customer to feel less than another customer. So typically the term tiering, segmentation, and maybe even dividing them into different names is used internally. I think it's a best practice to keep that internally so a customer doesn't feel less than. All of our customers we know are equal in terms of how happy we want them. We want them to be references. We want them to be successful, regardless of what segmentation they're in. So I really like to keep that internal and rather create specialized roles that are defined to make the customer successful. This could be a customer success by each tier, customer success specializing in those segments, but it doesn't mean they need to tell the customer that or tell the customer, you now get an email instead of a call because we think that's best for you. It's really about making sure that you're driving the end-to-end experience that aligns with the customer's outcomes and needs without letting them think or know that they may be receiving a different service than others. There's of course some caveats and exceptions here. Sometimes there's paid services or plans you can opt into to pay more for whether it be more professional services or a higher tier plan. And that of course is okay to upsell into and talk about. But if you're purely doing it for your organization and the customer's success, then you don't want to start defining what tier they're in and sharing it with them, especially because they have no way to opt out of it or to have a different experience. So really think of that when you're thinking of the action you're driving, and the customer shouldn't feel any different by you driving that action. That's why it's so important to measure proactively. Make sure you're in touch, you know how the customer's feeling, and you know the experience that they're having is aligned with what you're driving. Let's talk more about your team. So we talked about the customer's experience, everything revolving around them. Of course, that's extremely important. Many of us wouldn't be in business if we didn't have happy customers that were ready to renew, be referenceable, and be successful. But I don't want to forget, we also wouldn't have customers if we didn't have our amazing teams. Having a background in engagement and retention and working in primarily the HR technology space, this is so important to me as I've been building, leading teams over the years. So when you're thinking of tiering customers, there are so many perks, not only for your customers, but also for your team internally. There's opportunities to specialize different roles or different teams by tier. What that allows is not only growth opportunity for the people internally, so they may have opportunity to move into several different roles, it also allows subject matter expertise. So if someone is doing the same thing and the same tasks for the same type of customer in the same way, they are naturally going to be better at it than if they're maybe switching all the time and context shifting and determining what to do next. And so sometimes it's easier for it to be not just repetitive, but have a consistent process that they know to follow and that they can become an expert at because they're driving that same process over and over. A lot of times this motivate teams. When you have a specialty, when you have different career pathing, when you have ways for growth, it allows teams to feel like they're part of this. They are part of this. They're driving the success for your customers. They're extremely important to us. And so by allowing them to have this culture of internal growth, this culture of being involved in the process, in the deliverables, in being a subject matter expert or relying on others who are, really allows this culture that makes people have a sense of enablement, learning opportunities, and a feeling of connection and purpose. A lot of employee engagement studies, if you do them, will show you that, connection, purpose, belonging, these are key areas that allow people to feel satisfied at work. There's a lot of talk of where people work and how they work, but the core has stayed the same. If people feel like they belong and they feel like they're connected, they're more likely to stay. They're more likely to be happy. They're more likely to be more productive, and therefore more likely to make your customers more successful. So it comes full circle of the customer at the center, the team revolving around it, really relying on both for the perfect formula and outcome to make sure that everyone's happy. So I really like to emphasize that this is not just about the customer's experience, which is so critical, but it's also about your team's experience and providing and allowing them so many different opportunities by tiering your customers and creating these different areas of roles and expertise. Some next steps and takeaways I like to think of as you hopefully take this into action on your own. Make sure when you're segmenting your customers, you're doing it based on different actions you'll take. We're not just doing it for the sake of putting them in checkboxes and moving customers around and saying, hey, we segmented, we tiered our customers, we're ready to scale. You want this to really be driven based off of actions. This always has to go with the customer's outcome. They're the priority. We never want to lessen that. We always want them to feel that they're the priority. At the same time, you can engage, retain, and provide career paths for your team by allowing these different tiers and expertise levels, but make sure you're starting simple. You're measuring proactively. You're not waiting for a renewal, but you're measuring, you know where your customers stand at all times. Finally, I'll leave you with this. This is a sample. There's many ways to do this. I like to think many of these could be very lateral and in different positions. So take this as just an idea and a general sample. There's different ways to do career pathing, and there's different ways to do career pathing when you do segment your customers into different tiers. So you may see at the bottom left here that you have a customer success manager that specializes in one-to-many. They may be sending lots more emails, having lots more automated touch points from systems, but still having a bigger book of business and being equally as important throughout the organization and driving customer success. You may see a technical support team or a team that's responsible for the technical side of the business. They may be answering more questions reactively from customers, and they may have many customers that they're responding to, maybe not even a specific book of business or segment. Then you may have people that start to drive into a certain segment and really become those experts. They may become a subject matter expertise. They may become an enterprise or principal, whatever you'd like to call it, of that segment. And they may even grow to be a leader of that segment or beyond. So it allows for there to be different levels of teams, team leads, expertise, and then of course, different levels of supporting roles, whether that be implementation, that plays a key part in making sure customers are successful. This could be a separate team by segment. It could be across all your segments, or it could be a key role in what a CSM by segment does. There's operations that may, again, specialize in certain size customers and certain processes and systems, enablement. And again, these can all be lateral or in any order and allow for growth. It's just a general idea of some of the different roles, growth opportunities, allowing you to engage and retain your teams when you best tier your customers for the right experience. That's it for me today. Hopefully you learned something, have some takeaway to work with your own customers and your own team to create the right wins for everyone. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn using this QR code here. And if you're more interested in learning about Whisk, a place for space for life at work, focus on connection and belonging, again, engaging and retaining your team, especially in the customer success industry, something that's so near and dear to me, feel free to check us out for free. Check out our link here or whisk.com. I am very passionate about all things customer success and employee engagement and belonging. So if you'd like to chat more, connect, have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out at any time. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much and take care.